Thank you for tuning in for another edition of the Federalist Files. And this one I'm going to be going over Federalist number 2. It's going to be titled Concerning Dangers from Foreign Force and Influence. This one's going to be written by John Jay. It's going to have a couple more of the next preceding papers are going to be about the same, concerning the same thing. It's going to be the same topic. The main theme of this paper here is going to be protection through union, which will be emphasized throughout. I got a quote here to start off. John Jay calls for the indispensable necessity of government. He continues, the people have to cede some of their natural rights in order to vest it with requisite powers. Additionally, in the very beginning of this paper, Jay does beg the question to the readers, are you willing to either do one of two things? This vote and this approval of the proposed Constitution will entail. It's either going to be, you could have that power of the government split into 3 or 4 separate confederacies, which is what the Anti-Federalists wanted, or are you going to vest that power in the federal government and have, a top-down structure involving the state governments having their own sovereignty and their own power, as well as the federal government, which will supersede in certain scenarios. Like you said, are you willing to allow the federal government to have that power? Do you want all these separate confederacies to have that power? Where throughout the history, I believe it was in Britain, they'll cite it later in some of these papers, nobles will end up gaining power over the people more than the politicians will in the history, and there'll be a fight between the monarchical structure as well as the nobles, and usually the nobles end up winning a lot of the time because they do have the money and they have the influence and they have the power. So really, the reasoning for that robust and energetic federal government is to quell those insurrections from those nobles, but we'll get to that in some later papers. This paper, generally, the theme is union for the protection of individual rights and the protection of the nation from foreign influence and foreign powers. He continues, and I quote, "It has until lately been a received and uncontradicted opinion that the prosperity of the people of America depended on their continuing firmly united, and the wishes, prayers, and efforts of our best and wisest citizens have been constantly directed to that object." During this paper, Jay emphasizes that a unified nation is imperative to the common welfare of the citizens. He also equates all of this in terms of union. He speaks of the Sons of Liberty, the Revolution, all the Congresses, the Continental Congresses, saying that these individuals were all enamored by the conception of liberty and for their love of country. And this unity that we had was really paramount. And he said almost as if he dedicated to God. He uses the word in particular, providence. Just the soil, the land, because there were a lot of resources. Our country was very dependent on, we exported a lot in the very beginning, certain things like lumber. The soil was very rich, so it was easier to grow crop, easier to run a economy, even though, back in that time, it was mostly survival. It was survival goods that were needed, like food, And Jay really just appreciates this country for what it was and what it was started as, and it originated as an act. He believed it was an act of God, which he goes over in this paper. And then he also characterizes the men, because really what the question from the Anti-Federalists is they're giving the intent of our Congress that created this, they adopted this Constitution, as with having malintent, and he characterizes them. He says, and I quote, "Finally, without having been awed by power or influenced by any passions except love for their country, they presented and recommended to the people the plan produced by their joint and very unanimous councils." So, I mean, essentially, he continues this. Jay, he speaks that this Congress was, when it first originated, it was, these people trusted these representatives to make these decisions for the country, even during the Revolution. And now, over time, it has been much more established, the conception of these freedom-minded individuals that are in the as the representatives in the Congress. So now, the argument's even more powerful to the integrity of these individuals. And the anti-federalists at the time were trying to tear these people down, and that's why he needed to characterize them that way and say that to instill a sense of integrity and rectitude. He continues, supports the argument for the Union by saying, "To all general," and I quote, "to all general purposes, we have uniformly been one people, each individual citizen everywhere, enjoying the same national rights, privileges, and protection. As a nation, we have made peace and war. As a nation, we have vanquished our common enemies. As a nation, we have formed alliances and made treaties and entered into various compacts and conventions with foreign states." So he's saying, in essence, we've done so much already as a country unified that we really should go ahead and we should put it on paper and really solidify that union. And then he continues, and I quote, "It is worthy of remark that not only the first, but every succeeding Congress, as well as the late convention, have invariably joined with the people in thinking that the prosperity of America depended on its union. To preserve and perpetuate it was the great object of the people in forming that convention, and it is also the great object of the plan which the convention has advised them to adopt." And this just supports what I said before in characterizing those individuals with the utmost probity, integrity, that these I guess you would call them politicians at the time, but like I said, I don't really like to refer to them as politicians because it's almost like a connotation. But these individuals, these representatives, truly did represent the people, and they were also invested in what the citizens of America wanted. And lastly here, the general theme is that American prosperity was always dependent on its union, whether it was during the Revolution or the declaration of its independence. Jay fears that whenever the dissolution of the Union arrives, this will be the end of American greatness. So this is just, to end it, Jay makes a very, very strong argument that the only way this country could be taken out is if we don't approve this Constitution and the dissolution of this country, which will lead to, tumultuous chaos will ensue. So that's it for Federalist number 2. I will be going over number 3 next, obviously. And this will release on Wednesday. It'll be a day after the election, which is going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. And if you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next.